Welcome back, everyone. We got another Q&A session. We got a few more questions that came from our recent webinar done by Rob McCarthy and Mike Altman from IBW Advisors. Rob McCarthy is from Pulse Signal Solutions. This one was about avoiding ERRCS deployment pitfalls. And so there was some questions that were asked that we didn't have time to answer during the webinar. So we're back to make sure we're continuing to spread RF knowledge and be a resource to anybody that needs it. So I'm here with Jesse Friedman and Greg Glenn, the DAS doctor. So let's jump right in, fellas. I've got one here. How do you go about researching and finding all the different codes for the individual counties or towns?
Okay, well, essentially, there's two code standards out there. There's the NFPA 1225, which most of you know I sit on that board, and IFC 510, which is the International Fire Code. Both of these, they're a standards document that are typically used for a county or city will adopt the standard and then modify the standard. The unfortunate part is it becomes a little bit difficult, depending on where you're at, to find anybody who even understands the fire code. So I will say this much. A lot of counties and cities adopt this code without understanding what it means to adopt this code standard. And so a lot of them don't even really, you call up, you say, hey, I understand this is part of your code. You might find it in their actual building standards, but nobody in the organization knows anything about it. So it becomes a little bit of a challenge to find, a specific, you take a specific city and find out to try to get their frequencies, to find out who's going to be the licensee sign off. All of the things that are required aren't there. They don't have it in place because the cities haven't really enforced it and don't even really understand what it takes to enforce the code. So it can be tricky. You've got to work with a good, knowledgeable integrator, system professional to get that information. Often it's not easy to get. Even for us that have been in the business for 40 years, it's not easy to get.
Yeah, so it takes some due diligence, right? I know we've moving from west to east, right? Had created some of the before we have so many relationships out west, and when we kind of moved and went national here recently, that's definitely something that's put some difficulties in. But I think with the use of obviously your connections and knowledge in general with other folks, if there's some organizations like SBC that tries to help bring these guys together. There's different websites you can go on, but basically, the bottom line is like you said, you're going to have to make sure that if you can even get them to call you back, you make sure that they understand what they're talking
It takes
about.
relationship building like anything else, and like you said, there's organizations like APCO where you can find some of these professionals, and hopefully get them engaged. And there's a number of them around the country, but it really does take some relationship building and building a mutual respect and understanding between each other. And bottom line is, a lot of times you got to put the time in to convince them that you can be trusted to install on their system and not do damage, right? So it really is about relationship building, and there isn't just a one size fits all or a silver bullet to go punch the information into this one website and it'll give you everything you need to know, right? It's about interacting, hopping on the phone, beating the street a little bit, knocking on doors, and finding the right people to guide the process for sure. So thanks, gentlemen. How about this one? How do you select the best tool for the job, right? Why do people keep using wrong tools like coax BDAs?
That's a loaded question. I'm assuming that I'm assuming they're talking about when they say a coax BDA, a over-the-air donor-fed coaxial distribution type booster unit.
I think someone was poking the bear with this one. That's what I think.
Well, they are. They're probably
I
poking
think
me.
so too.
That's what I meant. You're the bear.
Well,
You're the bear they're poking.
the bottom line is, okay, when we talk, unfortunately, whether people want to agree with it or not, and I even go back and I looked at the latest IFC 510. The way the fire code's written is if you don't have coverage, you need to use a signal booster. Now, people are saying, well, you don't really need to use a signal booster, and I would invite anybody who's watching this to maybe, you know, reply in the comments. What other component is there in the two-way radio industry that can be used for in-building signal enhancement that meets either IFC 510 requirements or NFPA 1221 or 1225 requirements that is not a signal booster? In other words, tell me, just if somebody will throw something out there that is not a signal booster as defined by the FCC rules that meets the requirements of 1225 or 510, please tell me what that is, because I keep hearing over and over, oh, the fire code doesn't say you have to use a signal booster. And I keep hearing people are concerned that some of the requests made for the new code is taking things that aren't NFPA compliant and putting them in to the annex. So what else is there that is actually NFPA or IFC 510 or NFPA 1225 compliant that is not a signal booster? I mean, I don't think there is.
Yeah, one of the things that this is pretty obviously, with episode three, as something we hit on pretty good as well. Maybe not deep into that exact point, but that is something that I've been kind of hearing around too. It's just like there's really nothing out there that does both. You add a filter on an external filter on the BDA, and okay, yeah, great. Now the FCC is happy, but now it's not meeting fire code. So it just seems to be, there's some situations there's a no-win
Well,
scenario here.
and there's nothing that can be used that's in fire code. If you read fire code and you got a problem in the building, I don't think there's anything that can be used. I mean, there are actually things that can be used, but that meet the fire code requirements.
Well, we do
Right,
dive into this
exactly.
subject in episode 3, like Jesse said, of Tap Talk. So if you're a little more curious about that one, make sure you tune in and check out episode 3 of Tap Talks with us. And we've also got Dave Tuttle from Progressive Communications with us. So we had a good time with that one, and we dove into this question a little bit. So make sure you check that out. Kind of tying into this same one, I've got one more question here. How are low cost / low performance BDA and DAS solutions harming the industry?
Um, is that for me?
Well, I think I'd throw it out to either of you. I mean, I've got my thoughts on this for sure, which is, listen, here, I'll just go ahead and throw it out there then. In my opinion, it's not necessarily low cost or low performance BDA and DAS solutions. You could order the most expensive unit in the world, and sometimes it's going to have problems. I think from our perspective, one thing that's being missed, right? These things are kind of being sold and deployed as just something you can slap up and turn it on and call it good. And that's just not the case, right? So there's proper design needed, there's proper specifications needed, and the bottom line is one thing that we think is really missing from the industry that we have as part of our processes here at Pulse is any BDA that comes in, even our approved. So we have an OEM approved BDA OEM list, which is, hey, listen, only if they've shipped us a unit and we've tested it and made sure that it meets our specifications, the FCC rules and the fire code rules, will we approve it to be included in the design and deployed by our team. But even if they're on that approved vendor list, every single BDA that gets shipped to us to be installed, we put it through the process of bench testing it, because even the best units out there, I'm not going to name any brands right now, but the best brands out there, we'll still get some from the factory that get here, and there's issues with them. All right, we're talking about sophisticated electronics here. Sometimes there's issues, so we bench test it before it's ever deployed to the site, installed, and you don't want to be finding out there's problems when you're trying to turn this thing up and put it on the macro network to be tested. Now all of a sudden it's out there causing issues, raising the noise floor just while you're trying to get acceptance testing done. Number one, it's going to cost you more money as the services provider because you just wasted all the time of doing this installation,
Yeah.
then found out it's bad. So we bench test it here at our office before it gets deployed. But also, you could be doing damage to the network while you're just trying to do acceptance testing, right? So I think more bench testing needs to be happening before these units are deployed. Bottom line, and that's something that we've implemented and had good success with. So it doesn't just come down to low cost or low performance PDAs. Sometimes there's issues, sometimes there isn't. But the bottom line is we're working with sophisticated electronics, and you got to be running your own tests on these things before they ever get deployed.
Well, and I agree. And the other thing
Agreed.
I think that occurs is that the that and maybe this is part of that question is that I'm trying to wrap my head around the question that was asked there because I agree with you wholeheartedly, Kenny. But the thing that I also see happening is that low cost. I think some of the solutions that are used are not the right solutions for the job to begin with, and so when we say low cost BDA solutions, are we saying that people are cutting corners? Is that the question? Is people cutting corners? I would think that yes, a lot of times the wrong solutions are brought to play and put in order to check a box, and that does create problems with the networks. So that's another issue, that's beyond testing, right? I mean, if you're using the wrong one, it's not the right thing to do. So,
That's a great point right there, right? It's not one size fits all. So don't just think that you've got your favorite manufacturer and their solution is going to work for every instance, right? So Jesse, you look like you had something to say.
Right. Yeah, we always we always talking about a holistic view, right? That's why you got to make sure that your partner is not just going to go look at a specification, walk out there and do what it says, even if they did test it. Oh, this works fine. You got to look at the surround. You got to do all of your due diligence. With we talked about with obviously looking at the surrounding areas and looking at the macro network and thinking, is this the best solution out there for this project, and making sure that you think of it from that holistic
Well, and
point
you
of
hit
view.
on another good one there, Jesse, which is, the holistic view. But, just because a job, it's new construction maybe, and it's got a job specification, you can't just walk in there and say, okay, we're going to do whatever this says because it might not be the right solution. That's where you do need to spend some time educating, whether it's the end user, the general contractor, the fire code official, whoever it is. But you've got to have
Yep.
an understanding of what you're deploying so that you can understand whether or not it's the best solution, and then hopefully have that relationship to educate all the stakeholders involved to make sure that you know mistakes aren't made because something was written into specs by somebody that didn't really know what they were putting in there, right?
well, I mean, in fact, I see specs
Right.
that
And
are
it's
actually on their face illegal. I mean, written in the spec that if you were to follow the spec, you would be
right.
actually doing something that would be illegal against FCC rule.
And right, that's a great point. And it's not that some people think, okay, stop picking apart this, blah blah. It's not. It's going to cost everybody more money and more time and more headaches. It's if it's not the right solutions, it's never going to be the right solution, right? So it's either let's deal with it now or deal with it later. And unfortunately, and sometimes fortunately, from the dollar value, we get called into these situations. The DAS doctor himself gets these phone calls on a regular basis. What happened? Like what's going on? Well, if you would have talked to us to begin with, maybe we could have stopped it. But we're going to come help fix it anyways, and we're going to do our best to make sure that we educate them along the way.
Absolutely. That's about all we have time for, guys. So thanks for your time. We appreciate you. We appreciate you, the viewers. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Leave some comments down below if you have more questions for us. Don't ever hesitate to reach out to us, powerofpulse.com. And we'll keep bringing more information your way. So if you have any more questions, make sure you reach out to us. We'll get them answered for you as best we can. We want to be gracious and authentic with our RF expertise. And make sure you check out episode 3 of Tap Talks coming out soon for the one question. And make sure you subscribe to that as well, so you're always getting the latest updated Tap Talks. Have some fun with us, drink some beer with us, and gain some RF knowledge. So thanks to you boys.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Ken.
See you next
See ya.
time.
Thanks.